they must contain the key skills, and of course, as part of the differentiated instruction, it's alternative ways of reaching the same goals. When I got this one-third assignment, I was thinking of course, the subject I teach, the math. If I'm going to group my students, let's say grade 3, if I'm going to teach about geometry, spatial sense, and I have to teach them line of symmetry and shapes, I can group my students into two: the visual learners and the kinesthetic learners. For the activity of the kinesthetic learners, I will be asking them to do an origami using colored papers. So they have to cut out and fold the paper, and then after they do that, they will show me the line of symmetry they formed based on the origami they made. For the visual learners, I can tell them to use different pictures of maybe around nature, sun, the rainbow, the butterfly, and then by using those pictures for the visual learners, they will show me the line of symmetry of those figures and this item. So that's how I can see how to use third assignments based on their learning style. Next one we can adjust is the questions we are going to use. The questions are adjusted to the thinking levels of the students. Of course, we can use the keywords from the Bloom taxonomy. And it said that closed-ended questions check student knowledge and open-ended questions check student understanding and can be the basis of discussion. So for adjusting questions, you may have easy questions to those who are below average students. But of course, for those who are advanced learners, you can give them more difficult questions or more advanced questions. But the same thing, you're giving the same topic. So using the Bloom's taxonomy, you're using these keywords in purely understanding. But more, when you go up to the Bloom's taxonomy, you're going to use the word that will make them to think or to synthesize. So, adjusting questions. The co-op learning. Why do we have the co-op learning here in the differentiated instruction? As we can see, the co-op learning involves reading, hearing words, seeing, watching a movie. So we're using all the sensory channels in co-op learning. In differentiated instruction, whatever the student's learning style, learning interest, abilities, you have to consider all the sensory channels, because in as much as the more sensory channels they're using in learning, the more you are maximizing the potential, the learning potential of every student. That's why we have the cone of learning in our differentiated instruction. Planning pyramid. It is a theory based that all students learn, but not all students learn in the same pace. So the teacher should be considering the 5 interrelated items we have as the vertex of the pyramid. We have the student, the context, the teacher, the topic, and the instructional practice. And the teacher will have to consider all these independent and interrelated items in planning differentiated instruction. And once they have identified or determined the topic or the content, and then they have to fill that or in the 3 level of learning. The base is what all students will learn, and the middle portion is what most but not all students will learn, and the top is what some students will learn. I was thinking a specific example on this. Maybe if you're grade 1 or grade 2, you're teaching them about money. What all students will learn? maybe for the start, everybody should learn about the denomination, maybe baht, maybe grade 2, maybe baht, 5 baht, 10 baht, the denominations, and then what is the cost, what do you mean by cost, what do you mean by price, what do you mean by sell, buy, something like that. And maybe on the middle, you have to will include those about comparing the denominations, and then maybe correlating the price with each price. And for the top portion, maybe you will have a harder, let's say, they will be solving problems, how much will be the change if they sell, if they give much money, and how much they were going to get as a change. So they are going to fail these three degree of learning. So not everybody will learn how to make a change at the start, but of course they have to learn the basic first. Everybody must learn the basic or the foundation of the topic.
Just before we come on to this, I have to say probably two things. One is that in the research for this, I felt quite ashamed when I looked at the way I teach and I started to really think about what I do. What I actually do in class was quite limited. I think I have just a few ways that I approach most things, really. Content, how I deliver, and also the product, what I'm asking the students to produce. So I felt really quite ashamed about that when I started thinking about it. And I'm teaching EFL, so I've got students who need a lot of support actually. I teach artists and emerging moments of you. But the other thing as well, I felt it was quite inspired because through the research it showed me that BI really is just a very simple concept. It's very much about bringing in as much as possible, as many ideas, as many texts. We heard from on the slide about bringing Bloomsy. So David designing his presentation and bring these ideas in. And also things like discovery learning as well, bringing those ideas in. Creativity in the classroom, another presentation we've had, bringing those ideas in. It's very kind of eclectic. It uses everything together, it uses all of those. So I found that quite inspiring, that it's very much about bringing everything and trying to look for these patterns of need amongst your students. Planning seemed really important in that you plan, you get to know your students, you know what their needs are, and you bring in all these different contents and different learning strategies, and also products. So when we look at products, it's ways just to give multiple choices to show what students have learned. So for instance, if you're a language teacher again, if you want to know whether a student's understood a short story that they read, what you might do is to get them to write a paragraph or a page about that. And that's often what I do. But there's so much more you can do. And we've got a couple of options here, I think. Okay, so this is just another option, and if we focus on the skill that we're trying to, or the understanding that we're trying to assess, which in this case would be, do they know what the story is about, do they know the characters in the story, do they know the plot, then writing the page is one way to do that. And this would be another way too. Just back on. So this is another way of doing that. A way where they can write into the boxes, it would just suit a different learning style. Another way of doing that would be to design a cartoon or a poster, and they could have speech bubbles, and you could give them figures or something, speech bubbles, and they can write into that. So it's a different way of assessing exactly the same understanding. So I found that, as I say, really quite inspiring.
Now, depending on your students, give them a template like that, okay? What happens is you take a lot of the stress out of it, because what I've seen some teachers do, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but kids will stress out about it. So the teacher will draw that on the board or put it up like that, and then ask the student to reproduce that in their notebook, and then fill it in. As a general rule, that's not the best way to go, and here's why. Because your students will be rewarded for the wrong thing. Here's what I mean. Some of your students, and actually to be honest with you, in middle school, it's typically your girls, are better organized and better able to do nice, neat little lines and draw nice, neat little boxes. And so they'll actually put that together fairly quickly and it'll look really beautiful. And some of your students, not always, but it tends to be in middle school that it's your boys, have trouble doing that. And so they'll struggle with it. And they'll spend 10 minutes just putting that down. And that's not what you want. As Martin already said, what this is to try to see whether they understand how the story works, right? So if you give them this, you take that whole issue of can they produce it away. Because it's not graphic design, you're not teaching that. If it is, it's graphic design, fine, you have to do it, that's what you want. But what you're actually looking at is whether they understand the story. So you give them this in a handout, right? And then say, okay, now just go ahead and let's put these elements in the characters and the setting. And now you actually find out whether they know what's going on in the story or not. So just be careful. These techniques are great, but it's something to be careful how you do them. Go ahead.
So graphic organisers, now notes that we read up in this, we were saying note taking is a skill, actually I think we need, I think very useful in one of our lectures that we go to. And one teacher teaches 8 different ways to take notes. And you can actually outline them, we researched a little bit into that, we didn't find any actually, but they teach 8 different ways just to take notes. So we started looking a little bit into that, into graphic organisers, so we know that the way that Dr. Wishy, for instance, has asked us to take notes, we need to use a highlighter and to write the notes underneath. That's one way. Using graphic organisers is another way. Okay, so actually, this will just be, So using graphic organisers like this, a way just organising information. There are lots of different styles of these, which I think would suit lots of different types of people. And here's one too, another one where you can see this is essential for the food links, food groups, and then categories of food. And this is just a way of organising information, which would suit some people. Other people might just want to write a list. So there's lots of ways to approach how you would categorise and either present information or just use it in note form. Okay, and then mind mapping too, which I think probably most of you are kind of familiar with. So I think it's really important actually to give all of these options to the students, present this range of options and say, okay, which one suits you best? Right, okay, so for our next activity, yeah, please. Oh, sorry, let's go back to that. Go back to that slide. Right, okay, so let's go, sorry, I should go through some of this, so thanks very much for the question. Okay, graduated rubric. This, when I read, I had quite a nice description actually. What it said was, imagine you've got a teenage boy, okay, and when you go to his bedroom, it's always a mess, okay? So it wouldn't be fair to ask that boy to then transform himself into someone who makes his bed every day. Okay, so what we would do, we might have a next step would be, let's try and get him to his bed close onto the bed, okay? And then there'll be a step after that. So with the graduated rubric, a rubric is a way of assessing students. It's like an assessment criteria, so it would be just graded at different levels. It wouldn't always be going from no understanding to complete understanding of different levels within that, and you can assess against that. That's his points, understand. Does that make sense? Learning notes.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Quick second. Great example, and it's kind of funny, but a really good example I heard of the graduated rubric. This is actually a true story. It's in Chicken Hawk, which is a book about helicopter pilots. American helicopter pilots during the war in Vietnam. And this one guy was flying a helicopter, and he was learning how to fly a helicopter, and he was terrible at it, and he was landing. And they had to teach him how to hover, right? And then they teach him how to land. And he's hovering, and he says, okay, now you got to land, and you hover before you land. The idea is you're supposed to get it so that you can hover over a very small area. Because when you got to land, you often got to land in a real small area, or sometimes you don't even land. You just hold it up in the air, and people jump out. Right, going into a battle or something. And so this guy was not very good, and he gets it, and the stick is vibrating in his hand, and he's all over the place. And it's like it's a football field area that he's hovering in, which means like 100 square meters, basically. And so he said, oh my God, I'm terrible. And the instructor said to him, no, he says, you're doing okay. He says, we're just going to work on making the field smaller. That's a graduated rubric. Start out with a football field. Next time maybe we'll do 70 square meters.